Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of Final Stallions!
Good stuff. No other questions on my end. Feel free to kick off however you'd like.
All right. Trying to think. How do we want to start this, Spruce?
What do you mean?
So that's the other thing.
We're already in it. We're already in it.
Before this, there will be an intro video. All right. So for those who don't know, in the box below Spruce and I is good friend Nick Chagan. Nick is an avid Beatles fan. He is also a keyboardist, vocalist, and just a lover of music. So we welcome Nick on today to talk a little bit about Abbey Road by the Beatles. And so just start us off, Nick. Why did you pick this album?
So, in picking one album to go through and unpack, like I had a couple of them in mind where I'm thinking like, what do I truly listen to front to back? No skips, know every word, know what's next. And I had several options in mind for what could fit that criteria. But honestly, like my whole musical taste, I think is largely influenced by the Beatles. Think back to like high school, before we had like Bluetooth connection on Spotify to play whatever we want in our cars. Like you either had an iPad or an iPod, and you maybe had auxiliary out capability, or you had CDs. And I would just be blasting Beatles albums on repeat in my car, like constantly. And that was like my music for like most of junior year of high school and senior year. And like before junior year of high school, I listened to like a lot of, I would say, pretty typical top 40 pop rap kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I started listening to the Beatles and I just started Googling, YouTubing. You think of like Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, like these were big names. I never gave them a shot. And when I put on when I put on the Beatles, I was just like immediately blown away. And I was even more surprised that it was from the 60s. I was like, I expected 60s to be just like doo 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 bop doo doo ba da bow. It's like beach music, and it just felt so contemporary. So in one more piece on this is like the Beatles is like are a band that like my fiance and I like really bonded over when we really started dating, and we have paraphernalia all over our apartment. There's literally a Abbey Road poster on the wall across from me. There's like the Beatles on the wall here. There's a Hafner bass.
I was gonna say you got to pull out the bass at some point.
Yeah, and we both have tattoos. My dog's name is Lennon. So it's like an obnoxiously deep passion. So I was excited to talk about this album in particular because it seems to me to be the most musically concise, the most polished front to back, and just symbolically accurate portrayal of what the Beatles were in music. As this was like the last album that they had actually recorded, and it ends with a B-side that is so like epic. So I felt that this album in particular was one that was worth discussing over the others, even though they're all also seminal feats of work.
So would you say it's your favorite Beatles album?
Yeah, I think so. And I again, it really comes down to like the B-side, like the way in which we see the different musicians contribute to this. Like Ringo Starr, I'd argue, is having the most fun and trying different fills and messing around. George Harrison writes two of his most probably popular songs in the Beatles discography on this record. And we see like a vocal harmony on so many songs that is just like super crisp. And you can just hear George Martin kind of at his peak, like the Beatles' main producer over that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially what you're saying about Ringo. I feel like the song The End, that's like one time where I hear like Ringo really shine.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it, but that's his only solo in the entire discography. And it ends with the end.
I just want to give a shout or like just something that came up in the news recently that I didn't know, and I feel like a lot of people don't know about the Beatles. So recently on May 22nd of this year, so 2 days ago for when we're recording this, the a gentleman by the name of Charles Newby passed away. And Charles was a British musician who was briefly the bassist for the Beatles for several gigs in December of 1960, while Stuart Sutcliffe was still in Hamburg focusing on his art career. And so I guess I had no idea. I heard of Stewart, honestly, when I love Wikipedia. We'll just dive into just all bands whenever I have interest. But I don't even think this Charles guy is on their Wikipedia page, but he has his own Wikipedia page. So it's all kind of crazy in the wiki world. But nonetheless,
Never heard of him.
Charles, I'm going to take your word for it. And I'm going to say, may you rest in peace. You were an OG Beatle.
Yeah, I'm seeing here one of the Quarrymen, which was the Beatles before the Beatles,
That's right.
when they were in high school, 15 years old.
Was that Lennon's band?
Yep. And yeah, his first met Paul in school, and Paul knew George, and Ringo was still like living somewhere else in the UK at the time, which is where you hear like the name Pete Best and Stuart Sutcliffe, and they're originally like a 5-person group. And I actually
never knew that.
I actually didn't know Charles Newby was someone who was hopping in. Maybe he was the guy before Paul because he's played bass, so that probably makes sense.
I was
And John was just like, I don't know if I like this Charles guy. I think I have another person in mind.
Stuart, fuck you. Come with me.
I got this
That's
weird
funny.
chap named Paul.
Wait,
Hell
so
yeah.
Nick, do you know like how this album kind of intertwines with Let It Be, if you will? Because I'm just pulling up some quick facts about the album, and it looks like they were almost like they didn't finish recording Let It Be and then recorded Abbey Road and then finished recording Let It Be. Do I have that timeline right?
Yeah. It was basically like in some of the same sessions they were recording both albums. Actually,
Okay.
if you, and I'm speaking to the general audience, if you watched the 3-part Beatles docu-series Get Back on Disney Plus, if you haven't, highly recommend. It's absolutely incredible. Like just an amazing glimpse into the Beatles working style in their later years. In that album, in that documentary, in the span of time, they're trying to rush to figure out some sort of project to accommodate Let It Be. And while they're jamming on some of these Let It Be songs, you hear like the early glimpses of Abbey Road songs, which is super weird because Abbey Road was released a year before Let It Be. So they kind of ended up meshing together some of the recordings, and ultimately decided to release Let It Be after like the band, or just before like the band had ended.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a crazy fact.
Yeah, that's wild. They broke up in 1970, and it's like that's so early into their just like career in general.
Yeah, it is mind-boggling, like looking at how many albums they have in like 6 years of existing, or 7 years. Like until recently, I thought that was pretty undoable until I came across a band that I know we're all quite fond of.
Giz.
The Giz.
Dun, 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 dun. I am Gaia.
Yeah, side note, seeing them in 2 weeks.
Oh,
Wow, that's early June. Wait, so is that at the Salt Shed? Is that the name of the venue?
Yeah.
Okay.
3 nights in a row, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Dang.
Definitely going Tuesday, but I'm like considering a Monday show too.
Dude, I'm telling you, you should. You will not hear one song played on Monday that will get played on Tuesday. Like you're gonna just get two totally different concerts.
I'm also, because it was like one of the last available seats was like a premium box spot. Like this venue is brand new. It's super dope. It has a massive floor, and then they have one like premium seated section up kind of like near the stage, almost like if you were going to a festival, right? And you could sit in the like VIP section. That's sort of like where I'm at. But I'm like, I kind of want to be in the pit. And so I won't be in the pit for Tuesday night. And from listening to y'all's cover of your concert experience to hype me up for the show, I feel like I might have to go on a Monday to get in the pit.
There was nothing like it, man. I'm telling you, the undertow of that pit just will take you for
Think like Bloody Beetroots from like Lollapalooza 2011. It'll be like that, honestly.
That was like verbatim the first thing I thought of when I heard you tell the story. Because I remember the part in your story where you're saying at one point you just had to get off the side and take a breath. And I remember Spruce, this is 12 years ago. My first festival, I think is Adams, Lollapalooza 2011. Headliners like Coldplay, Foo Fighters, Muse, Eminem. It was like our first experience into like just what a festival experience was. And we're at like this tent that's like all dubstep. And Bloody Beetroots is this like EDM house group, and we're waiting for Skrillex back when Skrillex was like just peaking, like because they just come out with like some of the crazy stuff. And we just experienced for the first time, I think, being like sardined and like just a ridiculously unsafe environment for two 17-year-olds. Anyways,
I don't even know if we were that old. I think we might have been 16.
We were definitely going into our senior year of high school.
Were we? I feel like we were going into junior year. You might be right though. You are right. I think, and then we went, in 2012 with Jeff.
Correct. 1 year later. Anyways, thanks for the tangent on Giz. So I didn't realize that musicians could pump out so much content in such a short period of time. But the Beatles band should do that before many other groups are able to do that. And with such a diverse, a wide ranging, just like transformation of sound, style, experimentation, instruments, all the things. Really fun to talk about Abbey Road in particular, because that's kind of like the culmination of the transformation, if you will, from like beach music with like simple haircuts and suits to like totally hippie, just like new alternative.
And so we begin on September 26, 1969. At 47 minutes and 3 seconds, we have the Beatles' Abbey Road.
17 songs. And then obviously we have the classic lineup. We got John, singing on the piano. We got George Harrison singing on the guitar. Paul McCartney singing on the bass. Ringo Starr singing on the drums.
And to put in perspective of what Nick was just describing, again, this is their 11th studio album, and in such a short period of time. And this thing kicks off with one of the most popular Beatles songs ever in Come Together, sitting at 4 minutes and 19 seconds.
Yeah, this song is, awesome. It's just, one of the classic songs of the 60s. Honestly, so this is going to probably surprise both of you. The first time I heard this song was actually not by the Beatles. Aerosmith does a cover of this song on their Greatest Hits album, and I had that CD as a kid. And so for like probably about a year, I thought Aerosmith wrote this song.
I didn't hear that song on your top 10 cover list. I listened to that episode too.
Hey, if you heard, but if you heard my criteria, in order to be on there, it has to be better than the original. So
fair enough.
I'm saying I like the original more. Which, I definitely do. Honestly, like the Beatles version, I would prefer.
Just a legendary kind of melody, man. Everyone knows it. Every single person out there knows it. And again, just the melody of like the call and response, like don't like it's so fucking good, man. Shout out to the Ice Cream Militia.
I was just about to say that they did a nasty cover of that song.
Oh man, I bet it was ridiculous with all that
And
brass.
This dude who we actually had on, he came with Tanner. His name's Patrick, plays trombone. He like put the trombone down and was singing during that song, and like none of the regular singers were singing.
Yeah,
Man.
dude, that was incredible to see in just a packed place at the Soiree the Stallions first annual.
It's the annual. There you go. What's fun about the song is it's actually like I think it was I'm pretty sure it was written by John initially to combat or to vocally oppose Ronald Reagan's gubernatorial run in California. So this is like a protest. And what's fun on this album in general that we'll get to is like you hear the different styles of McCartney and Lennon, where McCartney is like love song, silly song for your kids. And Lennon is like really getting this like revolutionary period of his music where it's like, I don't care about that anymore. I care about Yoko Ono and like rising up against government and the wars and everything. And it's an interesting first glimpse into how the styles diverge throughout the album.
Okay. And so, wow, okay, if he's opposing Reagan, that's like for governor, not even for president.
Yeah. I think Reagan was elected president like the year
that was in the
before
80s,
after
right?
Lennon was murdered. Coincidence? I don't know. I'm not saying Ronald Reagan killed John Lennon, but I'm not saying that it could be something.
Dude,
I'm open to it. I don't think Kurt Cobain killed himself.
we've had that discussion on here before with the Petersons. I remember that.
I think Dave Grohl killed Kurt Cobain so he could have his own band and be in the spotlight.
Yeah, so that's
controversy.
wow.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
This could be a whole nother episode,
Totally
though.
joking.
No, you just put a crazy thought in my head. What would have happened if Kurt Cobain didn't die? Would there have been a point where Dave Grohl eventually broke off and formed his own band, or would Nirvana have like 15 albums? Like,
you got to think the former, right? You got to expect
maybe.
that.
I don't know, because I mean, if you're Dave Grohl, even though that was in him the whole time, if you're fucking making millions of dollars as like the most popular band in the world, that's a pretty tough gig to leave, you know? And then you're also not only that, but you're going to compete with the band that you just left. But I don't know.
There'll always be the what
that
if.
happens all the time.
Side note, because we can get back to the track list. I know we have a lot to get through, but you should do a whole episode on music conspiracies. And I would love to come and talk about the Paul is Dead one, which is another fun music conspiracy that is also highlighted in this album through the artwork of the actual the album artwork itself. Fun stuff to get into.
Speaking of that, hold on.
I mean, just speaking of that in general, like it is iconic. Like I was doing this shit when I was in like grade school. Just anytime you see crosswalk, you just pretend to start walking.
I've had this bad boy just sitting in the background. But let's bring it on screen more focused. Here we go. Abbey Road.
Why is John the other foot? Why did John put the other foot?
Yes.
Wait.
Paul is holding a cigarette and he's barefoot.
Just talking to get the screen back over here. See it, people? You see it?
that shit slaps. That shit slaps.
I'm awesome and I'm proud. I'm awesome and I'm proud.
Yeah, this is like a original pressing from the 60s. I don't know if it's necessarily like first edition or anything like that, because my dad was born in 63, so he would have only been 6 when this came out. So he probably, I'm guessing, bought like a 3rd or 4th edition, you know, after this album had been out for like 5 or 6 years, and he was old enough to start getting into music, but still cool. Like, I feel like this is like a piece of history right here.
That's super dope. And what's funny is if you ever actually go to London and go to Abbey Road, it's like a super underwhelming spot. Like it's the smallest street.
Weren't they just like, let's go take a picture? Like, we need a cover. Like, let's just go.
Yeah. They're like, let's go outside. It's like literally outside of the studio.
That's hilarious.
Because it could speak more about their tone at the time, where they were just like, screw this, I'm kind of done, which was sort of the tenor among the group, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it still slapped, and again, it started off with "Come Together," and then we just go right into an all-timer of Something, which sits at 3 minutes and 2 seconds.
Yeah, this song is like one of their most psychedelic songs, I think. Just like, yeah, it's very out there, but it's also super catchy at the same time.
It's really pretty, and one thing I really appreciate about the Beatles in general is how George Martin and Paul McCartney would bring strings into the music. That started relatively early, but in this song we get a lot of that with a whole orchestra of violins and violas, and it really elevates the sound. On top of it just being like what a lot of people consider their best song. Definitely George Harrison's best song and contribution to the band. It is rich in harmony. There is like whenever George sings, it gives a chance, and when Ringo sings, it gives a chance for the other two to really go in on harmonies. And as someone who is done a cappella, I appreciate that a lot more now when I listen to music. And just a tune where you get everything. You get like a pretty acoustic vibe, you get a whole orchestra forming the backdrop, and you get just rich vocal harmony.
Yeah, that's, sorry, not to sidebar, but like that is like what has really gotten me in to the Beach Boys recently, is just being so fascinated with like how they just use their voices as instruments, and like don't even really like focus on the music too much. Like most of the time they're outsourcing that, and it's just like everything is about the singing, and their singing drives like the bass, the high end, the mid end, like everything. Yeah, the Beatles are like the same way.
Yeah, it adds such a different element to the sound, and I think really fills it up, because you have all these instruments that are contributing in their own different way, but then you have like full chords in voice that give it this like extra layer that I really wish, like being in a band with Adam back in high school, I knew more and we could have added more to our own sound. But
it's honestly huge in music. I preach about it, I feel like, every other episode on this thing, with just having those backup harmonies. It fills it up, the empty space, and drives like the emotions with the songs. And yeah, no, the Beatles do a great job with it. I mean, you just every time I hear the song, I'm just like down, 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 and it's
Something
just
in the way.
it's so just like simple, but it's so catchy. You said it before, Nick. This album really started out with these two, sums up the Beatles, but then going into number 3, which is Maxwell's Silver Hammer, sitting at 3 minutes and 27 seconds, shows you that the Beatles can take it sideways.
This song is like super nutty, and without actually knowing, I would guess Paul wrote this song because a lot of his solo music is like super nutty. Am I right?
You're right. He's a weirdo. Yeah. And to put extra little cherry on top of that sundae of weirdness, this is the only song John Lennon isn't on in the album, because he protested it, because he said it sounds like, quote, Paul's grandma's music. And
damn.
Yeah. And what's funny is Ringo's like, yeah, it does, but our fans need some of that. I heard a great quote from a good buddy of mine who is a big Beatles fan, and he said, like, the Beatles can write the most beautiful song ever and also the most ridiculously silly song ever, and they'd be like back to back. And Maxwell Silver Hammer is definitely what I feel like to be a low on the album. But it's something that you can like play for your kids, right? Like, it's fun, it's kind of silly. There's other tunes like this across their discography that are like just out there and wacky, like Obla Di Obla Da off of the White Album.
Oh, that was so good. I used to rip that shit all the time. I forgot about that song. I gotta go add it to a playlist.
Like Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite off of Sgt. Pepper's. It's just more, honestly, it's more about Paul's ability and willingness to storytell in the weirdest ways, right? Like he makes these characters, he creates these personas, and he tells a story that's not all about love. You hear this most notably like on Eleanor Rigby, right? Like just like a full random story that's so fictional, and he has names in it, and it's just not a love song. So it's like this weird other tangent that Paul goes in where he gets super weird and tells fun, silly stories. So yeah, Maxwell Silverhammer.
Yeah, I mean, I love that about Paul, honestly. Like, I would say out of all the Beatles solo careers, I definitely like Paul's the most, like, by a lot, honestly. Like, some of those Wings albums are crazy.
Yeah.
Although I guess, do you even consider that Paul solo? Because technically it's a band called the Wings.
Yeah, and John could have rivaled that if he had more time.
True.
And George too. George's like follow-up album to the end of the Beatles in like 71 or something. Maybe 72. I think the 50th anniversary was like within the past couple of years. Was like a killer, and it actually included some cuts from the Abbey Road sessions. But he died in like the early 2000s, I think, of brain cancer or something, or lung cancer.
Yeah.
Georgie. Yeah, dude, this one, I don't know. I was watching some sort of Beatles documentary. I don't know when or where, but nonetheless, I remember them talking about this song, and like when they're like bang, bang, Maxwell, like they're actually just banging like
An
I don't even
anvil.
know. Yeah, yes, correct. Yeah, I just think Looney Tunes. I'm like, well, the thing they drop on the heads.
Yeah, like they're literally hitting an anvil in a studio.
Yeah, that's
Just
right.
shenanigans. Like I just imagine like just bros being in a recording studio being like, what else should we do that's silly?
And then John being in the corner with just a cig, being like, "Oh, children, I can't put up with this."
He's like, I want to be singing about whoa here, we get serious. I'm gonna go hang out with Yoko. And then Paul's like, what if we hit the anvil with the thing and do this stuff? And Ringo's just like, I don't really care what we do. I'm just happy to be here.
George is like, I still get my 3 songs, correct?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That is, yeah, we just broke that down for you. Stampede out there. But from here we go into a ripper of Oh Darling, sitting at 3 minutes and 27 seconds. And I've definitely like heard this song before I dove into this full album. But man, this one really just sounds like a Christmas song if you listen to like the way it's sung in the backing track. That's all I could think of just listening to it. Oh darling.
Yeah.
Like, baby, please come home for Christmas.
It kind of has like a blues vibe to it as well.
Yeah, I honestly think of that like, baby, it's Christmas once again, and like I don't know whatever song that is.
Yeah.
Is
And
it fucking
that's
you
in-
too?
It's in 6/8 time, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, Spruce. I know exactly what song you're talking about. The U2 song. That's
So
on...
don't you tell me.
1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I think it's in 6/8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really great song, man. Like honestly, it's just so catchy and just I don't know. tell. Wow, it says, I'm reading just right here. Oh, Darling was written by McCarthy in the doo-wop style, like contemporary work by Frank Zappa.
Hey,
Yeah, so honestly, Nick, when you were describing like Paul's songwriting, that was like exactly what came into my mind. I was like, this sounds like what Zappa does. 'Cause he does the same thing. It's just like random, like fictional characters, just like doing the most bizarre things in these like Zappa stories. Yeah.
yeah, and no, in this one, like you kind of forget that the Beatles are a rock band sometimes, like because in the '60s, like rock was so different than what you may think of, even like 5 years later. Uh, and Paul like rips this song, right? Like he's like
Mhm.
screaming, and it's fucking awesome. And I read that he actually would like sing it in the morning, like before recording this, like 3 or 4 times to get his voice to be like a little worn out, a little raspy, so he could just sound kind of like a bit edgy. And you hear this kind of sound. Unfortunately, not enough, but when you do, you're like, dude, Paul McCartney can rip chords or rip notes. Like he gets up there, like
Mhm.
Helter Skelter, and these songs where he just like lets it all out, and um super epic one for him to just rip it on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the singing in that song does go hard.
And then we just keep getting harder and harder as we continue forward into the octopus's garden, sitting at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. And man, oh man, does this one just get me going. Like that guitar at the beginning. Woo! What it would be in the octopus's garden in the shade.
Definitely wrote it on acid. I would hope so, at least, or else like just what are you doing with your mental faculties if you're writing this song? Not just
Oh,
totally.
I'll tell you what, we're getting Ringo'd, man. Ringo's on the lead vocals on that one.
Yeah,
And it does
yeah.
show, like you said, it opens the harmonies in the background, and you hear it very evidently in that chorus.
The harmonies in this song are redonkulous. Like, and again, I think like when you let Paul, George, and uh John like take a step back and let Ringo do something vocally, they have just so much more flexibility with the harmonies, and it's so tight. Like every harmony is like ridiculously tight. And I think also like one of Ringo's most fun uh drum rhythms on this album. He plays around a lot. He changes it up a bit. It's just so like non-consistent. But it works really well. It's just like one of those songs again that you could like play for your kids when they're like 2 or 3 and they're just like, I love this. This is super fun. But probably another one where John was like, I'm not having fun. This is like so silly.
Yeah, it almost has kind of like a country or even like southern rock vibe to it, which I mean, to me that's like a good thing. Like we're what, 5 songs in, and we've just talked about like all these different styles these songs have. Like,
I
Yeah,
kind
that
of feel
tone, or sorry, I was just gonna say that guitar tone is definitely right up that alley
yeah, it's
club.
like twangy, yeah, like country southern rockish.
it's fun, and I think they wanted to do. I think they wanted to put the song here because of what's coming next.
Oh yes.
So I think they're like, where does the song fit on this album? Not quite sure. Not on the B side. Not at the beginning of the album. Maybe we could use it to light up the mood before we hop into like just this next, just heavy beast of a song.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I'll
go ahead,
take
Clint.
it, Spruce.
Yeah, I mean, I just heard the word heavy and I just wanted to jump right into it. So I want you, parentheses, she's so heavy. And this is
I want you so bad.
a long boy at sitting at 747.
Hell yeah! Second longest song in the Beatles discography, behind
Hmm.
number nine, number nine,
Oh, okay.
number nine. Revolution 9. Like a 13-minute. I'm not gonna call it a song. Another acid trip. Yeah, this one's prime, right? Like it's super heavy, and I read that it's just a John writing about Yoko. What's cool is like have you guys ever seen the movie Across the Universe?
I have
Can't
not.
say I have.
I bring it up because it's basically the Mamma Mia of the Beatles,
Okay.
right? Like you guys talk about in your ABBA episode how like there's a movie that's all ABBA songs and it's like a musical, and Across the Universe is a like Beatles musical with fictional characters and everything. And in that movie, they sing the song, and the movie's set during like the Vietnam War,
Okay.
and they have this really cool like imagery of like the song being about Uncle Sam saying like I want you for the sign up for the army, or to actually not to sign up, I want you, and you're gonna come go to the jungle for no reason.
That's hilarious.
But I was disappointed to learn that it wasn't about that, in fact, and it was just about Yoko. But nonetheless, like a super long, super intense song that has some diversity. There's one point that makes me think you guys are big like Santana fans, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like there's this like one guitar break halfway through the song at like 3:40 or something. It's like a minute long, and it's just like sounds like straight like out of a Santana album, just like this guitar run that bleeds into like I think a time signature change, which makes it just a really fun. It makes a 7.5 minute song different, like you might hear in a Giz song.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting you say that, because one of my favorite jam bands, Humphreys McGee, this is like a staple in like their live repertoire. They have this song on an album where coincidentally enough it was recorded at Abbey Road Studios. It's called the London Session, and it's a live studio album. So like they went into Abbey Road Studios and just like recorded an album like one take, so it's like live, but there's like, there's no like fans or anything there, and it's studio sound quality. But that was like one of the songs they played. And I guess what I'm getting at is like a band like Humphreys that is like a jam band always playing like super complicated, intricate music is not going to pick a song like that to cover unless it is, complicated in its original form.
Yeah, it's one of those songs where like there's enough of a structure that you can really diverge away and make it your own and do fun stuff with it. And where like the song structure itself, it doesn't follow a typical like verse one, chorus one, verse one, chorus one, bridge, right? Or it's like outro. It's such a weird song structure where it gives any bands who are covering it the ability to do really whatever they want, as long as they say I want you like 100 times. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've heard of Humphrey McGee's.
Here's a fun fact that I came across. So this song altogether is a combination of two different recordings. So the first one was in February of 1969. That was right after those Get Back, Let It Be sessions with Billy Preston. And then a second version was made during these Abbey Road sessions in April of 69. And so that's when they put it together. And the final mixing and editing of this track actually occurred on August 20th of 1969, which was the last day in which all four Beatles were together in the studio.
Damn.
Man. And you remind me of something, Spruce, and talking more through that. You mentioned the name Billy Preston. I'll reference back to that Get Back documentary.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see him in this documentary if you watch that, but he was towards the end of the Beatles in those last few years, what people have considered like the fifth Beatle, like a ridiculously talented keys player. He's super prevalent on Let It Be. You'll hear him throughout the entire album. But on this song, he has this like one run, a key run that is like absurd. And I hope that you guys can like cut it and play it over me talking.
Just to
in
be
post.
clear, wait, we're talking about like Billy Preston, like the soul Motown.
Yes.
Damn, I had no idea that he was like involved with the Beatles. His like Billy Preston music is incredible.
Yeah, I think it was John who wanted him to join the band as an official member, and
Wow.
Paul
That
was
would have
the
been fucking nuts. Are you kidding
yeah,
me?
and Paul poo-pooed it, I believe. That's the correct history, which is so beat. And I remember hearing that his mentality behind this was like, it's enough to wrangle you three idiots to rehearsal to record. I got to do a fourth. Like that just sounds stressful for me as like the like basically like the band leader with John over here just like dicking around with his wife nonstop, and George is a bit tapped out, and Ringo's again still happy to be there, but he's like, I got to deal with some fifth dude now, even though he just brought this like ridiculous sound to the last few albums that you didn't get before. So it is sad.
Yeah. But hey, so this song is a hell of a way. And for vinyl reference, this is where side A will end. And it ends pretty abruptly if you listen to that full song. It's just like cuts out. And
Yeah.
that makes sense why it would be the end of the side. So they make you flip it right into probably, yeah, like I said, Come Together was maybe one of their most popular songs. This one has over 1 billion streams, at least just on Spotify itself.
Damn.
Or wait, yeah, they have. Yeah, that's 1 billion. Wow, that's insane. And then Come Together has 607 million. So that's a shit ton more for the song in itself. But anyway, Here Comes the Sun. Everyone knows that shit. And that is 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yeah, banger. Obviously, it's like one of the ones you hear and you're like, that was fun. I'm so happy. I should
It's
listen to
all
it
right.
again.
It's all right.
That's like the
It's-
song where like you're out driving on a spring day. It's like finally warm, like we're out of the Midwest winter, and you just toss that on and you're driving with your windows down for the first time that year.
Yeah, hey, he does say it in the song, like, it's been a long and lonely winter.
Sun, 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 here it comes. Yeah, Harrison's probably what most people say is like his most famous song, obviously, and gives him the flexibility to no, you can cut that. I had a thought there and it just totally lost me. It gives him another chance to like add just a whole new sound in his own right that isn't like a Paul John song to the album and to the discography in general. And another song where again the vocal harmonies are just super tight. And I know that George sings a part of those harmonies as well. So super full song, and I think a really fun way to kick off the second side of the album.
Yeah, because really, so like the first side, I feel like is all pretty well structured. Like, I don't want to say mainstream, but like
Broken up in
traditionally
songs. Yeah.
formatted songs, other than like maybe I Want You. But outside of that, I mean, like you got, six songs. And then yeah, you flip it over, you got this song which like follows that same format, and then you just get into like just absolute insanity with just how like these next songs we're about to go through, it's just like one just flows into the other, into the next, into the next, into the next, and like before you know it, you're like, oh shit, album's over. So
Yeah, it's got one of those vibes. I was listening today to I'm Not in Your Mind Fuzz. I'm bringing it back up again. Sorry about that, but
no, Giz is always welcome here.
and in that album, if you listen to it again, it's like one of those where it's like this B-side but front to back. Like the entire album flows, and that's different where they kind of use like the same, like almost like the same root chords, like the same chord progression, and just change up the music throughout the whole album. But this is like it has to be one of the first times where a band just had like a stream of consciousness over 7 songs, and where they transitioned each track so seamlessly, right? I have to mention that was hard to do when you're recording on vinyl in the 60s, to make sure that it flows so perfectly. But yeah, Adam, you're referring to like really the beginning of the medley, or actually the penultimate song to the medley, which is Because.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it feels like Because is the beginning of it, but I could see how like maybe you could wait one song more to like consider it really.
Probably just because, and we'll get into Because here in a second, like that song ends and then we get into like a different chord progression, and the beginning of like of You Never Give Me Your Money through the end is like where it's the ends of each songs flow perfectly into the beginnings of the next songs. That's why I might say that the end begins after Because.
Okay.
We
sound like we are in the Wizard of Oz because.
I don't remember the words.
Wonderful thing she knows. Anyway, because we're going into Because, which sits at number 8, and it is 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, kind of like the psychedelic surf music vibe.
Yeah, the harpsichord, just like that spooky. It opens with a spooky melody, and I hold back up to just to fact check myself. But John Lennon is watching Yoko Ono play Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven and asks her to play it backwards. And like that's the root of this song, of this opening melody, which is geeky. And also, just before we get into the song itself, very reminiscent of the Beatles' tendencies to experiment with recording and to try backtracking and recording songs in reverse, and doing these like at the time innovative techniques to record music, flipping like the actual recording track and like scratching it up and just doing all these weird things to like mute the sound or change the sound. It makes sense that John Lennon is like thinking, what if we just did this other way, and try that out.
Yeah. I mean, it's like definitely one of the more out there songs on the album. Oh shit, what's going on, Spruce?
I heard him say Lennon, and the Lennon glasses were right in front of me. Peace to all.
Well, hey there, John. I didn't see you. I could give you my bass if you want to play a song or two.
Okay, is it okay if I do that?
No.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm gonna wrap these for the rest of it because shout out to Lennon, baby.
Yeah, you have to now.
And now we go into.
Oh wait, but we gotta just say one more thing about this song before we hop in.
Please do.
Which is like it's mostly acapella. Like there's only harpsichord, and maybe some. I don't know if there's any other instruments on it, and it's mostly acapella. And it is just like insane. And actually, I think each member recorded themselves 3 times. So it's like there's 9 vocal tracks layered on this thing, sort of like what you'd hear in Bohemian Rhapsody, right? Like in the breakdown, with the operatic part, and it's like Freddie Mercury like 19 times recorded over himself. So appreciate the vocal part of this song, and I actually encourage listeners to go find Because off of their re-released, like basically the best hits album called One. I think it's One or Love or something like that, in like 2010. And the version on that album has no harpsichord; it's just a cappella. It's the kind of thing
Okay.
that you would like lay in a field and like eat mushrooms. I'm kidding. But like
There's no joking on Vinyl Stallions. This is a very serious forum.
Never have ever, mom.
But all right, so dude, this is crazy because I honestly didn't know what to expect. I've never listened to this album all the way through, and again, as Klepp pointed out, majority of these songs so far have just been like, when the song ends, and I wasn't expecting a 16-minute medley of just insane songs going into one another, and that is kind of where this album is about to take us as we head into "You Never Give Me Your Money," sitting at number 9, and that is 4 minutes and 2 seconds.
And this one really features Mr. Lennon over there. Like the piano in this song is incredible.
Yeah, certainly. And it's one of their songs that they change up the chord progression, the melody, like 4 different times, but it still works. Like it isn't just such a radical pivot mid song where you're like, what the actual hell was that? But like the way that they transition from this like chill, relaxed piano intro to like a more heavier, I want to call it like pre-chorus, into like this breakdown at the end. It's just so out all over the place, and kind of the perfect start to this just super diverse medley in general.
Dude, those guitar solos at the end are just wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll get to the call out to this song later in the album and later in the review.
Well, we will continue down the path of moving into one of the most interesting songs off this album, Sun King, sitting at number 10 and 2 minutes 26 seconds.
Yeah, and this one honestly kind of feels like a Pink Floyd song at first, or maybe the whole time. But yeah, it's just like, super slow, and then towards the middle of it, just they all kind of harmonize like, here comes the Sun King, and like the whole thing is like pretty psychedelic.
Yeah, I was in Florida this past week, like sitting on a beach after work, and with Abby and her family, and the song came on, and I was just like, yeah, like this feels right. Like it's super smooth. It's really like calming. And it's like their weird attempt to probably maybe the second or third time in their discography where they sing a foreign language. In the last like 30 seconds of the song, they do what sounds like they sing in what sounds like Italian, but it's like messy Spanish, messy Italian. They use a Portuguese word in there at some point, obrigado, which means thank you. And I like can't confirm nor deny if this is like actually like one language, because they're using just different I think a blend of languages in this outro.
I was so confused, honestly, because one, I was like, has this song been in a different language this whole time? Like, as you mentioned, Santana, like, I just rip, like, I don't know, Spanish all the time. That I just don't even think about it sometimes. And
Yeah.
like, it caught me, and I was like, wait, has this been a different language? But then they go back to English at the end of it, and I'm like, okay, they just tossed that in there. But
Yeah,
no, this was a very interesting one. I really dug this a lot.
And the harmonies that close out that, the vocal harmonies on this outro in different languages that leans into the next song, are just like, again, really musically tight.
Yeah, I almost feel like this song is just like kind of feels like an intro into the next song.
Into the next like 4 songs.
Yeah.
Because I think this one ends, it's like
Mean Mr.
Mr.
Mustard.
Mustard singing and
Yeah, dude. So yeah, these two back to back, I was like, what is happening? So number 11, Mean Mr. Mustard, sitting at 1 minute and 6 seconds. That is so yeah, I don't know. Are these some of the fictional or is this like one of the fictional characters that he's making up, or do you know what?
Yeah,
Weird.
is this a Paul song?
Weirdly, this is a John song, but
Okay.
it was written I think during their trip to India. So in 68, while they were recording and writing the White Album, which is like a massive album. It's like somewhere between like 18 to 20 tracks, I think. They go to India and they hang out with this like Hindu, just like spiritual leader for a long time and write these just geeky songs that end up on White Album. And I think this song is one of those that was from those sessions, doing acid and hanging out with the Maharishi.
I believe it was maybe peyote or something was involved. But anyway, P was on their mind with the next song at number 12, Polythene Pam, and that's 1 minute 12 seconds. And I think you got to listen to Mean Mr. Mustard and Polythene Pam back to back, or you're not getting the full experience.
Yeah, weird one. Super high energy. The drums here are where like Ringo really starts to just like open it up and just goes hard from the song on to the very end of the album. And it's sort of where the continuity really feels like it can't be stopped at this point. John Lennon singing, another fictional character. I don't really know the meaning of it, but it's got to be a little geeky.
Yeah, and George busts a nut at the end of the song too.
Wait, what?
Like the last 20, 25, maybe 30 seconds of it, he's just ripping.
I just like envision like in the studio.
Go for the solo, Georgie.
he's like,
oh shit.
Not that kind, George.
Yeah. I'm about to blow. Don't stop, George.
Man, that could be a fun new recording technique that they could have tried. Just
well, yeah,
just do it in reverse, speed it up a little bit, and it sounds like it's like some new like sound effect they can use. Innovative.
All right, come on, don't give away recording techniques live like this. Someone's gonna have to take it and also pay for a nice cleanup in a studio soon.
We take royalties. Send cash to Adam's mom.
Well, we continue down this. Just
shout out to Sandy.
Yeah, shout out to Sandy. But we continue down just this rabbit hole that is this medley, and it goes into She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, sending that 1 minute 58 seconds. And I wonder why she wasn't allowed in the front door. Does anyone know?
I do know. This is there was a fan who broke into Paul's house. Like that's just it.
Damn.
And she came to the bathroom window, protected by a silver spoon.
Well, damn. I mean, I feel like that would inspire people to want to break in more. I mean, you get a song written from Paul himself. Like, talk about inspiration to just go and do something.
That's like the opposite of ADT.
No, don't go and break into Paul McCartney's house. I myself and Vinyl Stallions, we denounce anyone that does that. We'll put you in the ground. Wait, no, that's not a threat either.
Yeah, right. I'm reading into it now. According to the person, Diane Ashley, she said, "We were bored. He was out, and so we decided to pay him a visit. We found a ladder in his garden and stuck it up at the bathroom window, which he'd left slightly open. I was when he climbed up and got in." Cool.
Yeah, that's what breaking and entering. Diane.
Yeah, don't in America, you're shot in the head if you do that.
Yeah. Instead, you get a song from Paul. But we continued on, I believe. So that one was written by Paul, and then so was the next one, which is Golden Slumbers.
The whole end of this album, the last 4 songs are all Paul. It's Paul.
Okay.
It's Paul Machine here.
Okay.
That explains everything. So Golden Slumbers, 1:31, sitting at number 14.
Yeah, and I mentioned like that story. I mentioned like how when I'm in high school, like, I'm listening to this album front to back, like nonstop, and this is one of the ones where like you kind of can't believe how much you get in such a short period of time. It's so short, but it's so pretty and has just like the best thing about the Beatles music sometimes is that it's so simple. Like there's like 3 chords or 2 chords in this whole song. And it's so beautiful. And they bring in again, George Martin brings in the strings, and there's just like orchestral symphonic sound in the backdrop. That it's just again bringing in that musical just detail in only a short minute and a half, but it's the perfect setup for the three-peat. What's this? Sometimes these last 3 songs are often referred to as.
I mean, dude, this song was so powerful the way it is sung. Like you go halfway through that song, Golden Slumbers, and it's just like, I don't know, like powerful is just the word that keeps coming to my head with some grip behind it is how they're singing. It's so good.
Yeah, and kind of how like Nick, you were talking about how Paul sings in "Oh Darling." I feel like this song has a little bit of that in it. Like he just kind of really, explodes with the singing. I guess I'm not sure if it's Paul, but whoever it is singing, like about like 45 seconds to a minute in, like just gets like really big.
Oh yeah, he full chests that. He it is Paul. He goes full belt mode in that. And it's just like that rocker in him that can like just belt like on "Oh Darling" or in "Helter Skelter." Super good.
It is. So, all right. So you say it's called the 3P, what we're headed into with one of my favorite in Carry That Weight,
Yeah,
number
this
15.
song's nuts.
1:36.
You're gonna carry that weight. Carry that weight. That's just such a party song.
Definitely a song I'd imagine playing at just a rager on a Saturday night. No, but it rocks, right? This another song that is musically diverse, like "You Never Give Me Your Money" off the album, where they switched up a little bit. They go into different different musical rabbit holes. And most notably in the song, when you just hear a just anthemic brass section with like 100 like trumpets doing the melody to the "You Never Give Me Your Money" chorus. So they're bringing back the or not the chorus, but the line, the opening line, a melody to "You Never Give Me Your Money," and kind of like a hidden verse from that song before going into like a short but like simple guitar solo to then rip it into the end of that like last "Carry That Weight."
Yeah, the harmonies as well. Like it's just like feels like a marching band, man.
Yeah.
Gonna carry that weight.
Yeah.
Carry that weight.
If you I always think of like, you guys My Chemical Romance fans.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. This makes me think of "Welcome to the Black Parade" for some reason. Like when I hear this song, like the music video. You remember that when we were like in like the 8th grade
They're
or
just
7th
walking
grade,
down.
and
Yep.
they're just like marching, and like that's kind of how I envision this song. Like the imagery.
Yeah,
I
dude.
could see that.
100%. And then we just continue that parade right to number 16, "The End," at 2:21, which we've already discussed as being a Ringo shining spotlight. Tell us more.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Go
Dan.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I feel like this song is like very different than like every Beatles song. Like they rock out more in this song than I feel like they ever do.
I think the only song where they trade guitar solos, like it's not just George in the middle of the song where he's ripping, and you can't. I'm pretty sure they have the song the song tailored to jump back between each headphone. So they double recorded it on the vinyl to give it that effect of like left ear,
Okay.
right ear. But I think that's also intentional because it's like George is like shredding like a mini solo, hands it over
Yeah.
to John, and he's doing like a mini solo. I don't know if I don't think Paul is as well, but you just get like a fun jam. You get that Ringo solo, like you mentioned, and
Hmm.
also just like a really fun dynamic uh, drum rhythm from Ringo.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely like the most impressive Ringo drum song in my opinion.
No, it's just so well put together, honestly, this album. And of course it has to end with just Her Majesty
A
sitting at
little
number
hidden track.
17. Yeah, number 25. Or sorry, 25 seconds. Number 17. Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple other hidden tracks that I'm not gonna tell you about.
It's to come out on the 100th version or on the 100th anniversary of Paul is Dead, the unreleased tracks.
Hmm.
No. Um yeah, weird tune, right? I think I read into this a few weeks back and like they were it was just Paul at his home and did this on a guitar and the producers wanted to put it on, or George Martin and his producers wanted to put it on, and he was like kind of indifferent about it. At that point, the band was like pretty much done, so they're like, "Yeah, why not? We'll throw it on there as a hidden track," which is super fun. Thinking back to like what that must have been like in the '60s when you don't have a device to see what song is next, and you just get a vinyl with like no indication that there's going to be a hidden track, and it just starts
Yeah,
playing. But
yeah, and it's like if the needle doesn't come up immediately, you kind of just have to let it keep rolling and see what happens.
yeah, super weird. I don't know if it'd be my choice of going back just with how the end ends. But nonetheless, it's fun and just like I think the end being called the end and summing up that way was like the perfect way that they could have gone out, right? Even though it wasn't their last album to be released, but the last one to be recorded. Like just such a encapsulative uh justice to the discography and how like they've changed so much over time. So it means a lot to me. Abby, my fiance Abby, has like the Abbey Road yellow, the white paint on her arm as a tattoo.
Okay.
So we buy this album a lot and play it all the time. Even it's one of those, you know, you have those artists where you're like, am I still gonna like this? Am I still gonna like this in 10 years or in 15 years? And it never ceases to sound boring or outdated. It's
Yeah,
truly timeless.
absolutely. All right, let's go around the horn. Top 3 songs off the album. Don't have to put them in any particular order, but you got to pick 3.
I honestly like I know we do this with every album review. So as I'm listening to this, I was just constantly thinking that I think this may be one of my toughest choices, man, because
It really
it
is.
sucks. Like, it sucks to like come together and something and like Here Comes the Sun are just so ingrained. Like I mean, we talk about it all the time, but just I don't know. Obviously, you listen to a song for so long, I don't know. It just loses its place at some points, and then it can obviously get revived at other points. But I don't want to overlook that just because it's been ingrained in my brain for the past 25 years. But all right, you're gonna put me on the spot here. I'm gonna tell you my top 3 right now. It's gonna be I'm gonna put Carry That Weight on there.
Let's go. Contrarian
Yep.
point of view. I like it.
Yes, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put Something on there because I just really think that song is incredible. And then for my final choice on Abbey Road, I will have to go with Ringo singing Octopus's Garden.
That's
Number
fair.
one of all
Yes,
time.
of all time.
More than any other song ever.
Ever. I dude, I sitting at the ball. Like, dude, I don't know. When I listened to it today, those ones honestly jumped off the page for me. Again, I would probably change my answer tomorrow, and obviously love Here Comes the Sun and Come Together. And honestly, Oh Darling, that one was great as well. But those are my three. What do you boys counter with? Tell me, Nick.
Yes. Well, I do appreciate you giving love to Ringo and George in your
Yeah, true.
top three as well. I kind of want to give a shitty cop out answer where like the final three songs are all one. But if I can't do that, then I think I'd put Golden Slumbers up there for sure. Probably another contrarian song, but You Never Give Me Your Money, just because it is so diverse.
That one's great.
And just changes it up, and it's just a ripper. And I am torn between Something and Come Together for the last one. But I think from listening to the latest re-release of this album, they came out, I think, in 2019. They have a recorded version of Something that is all strings, no singing. And it's just like, it's a tearjerker. So I think because of the musical integrity, I'm going to throw that on there too.
Something.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, spit it out.
Oh man.
Adam's like, I'm a drummer, so I'm going to go with Octopus's Garden all three times.
Yes. Inject me with that shit.
No, it's really tough because I have like four that I really want to say, but like I have to cut one out. But yeah, so like, let's see, what are we guaranteed gonna put in? Probably I Want You. Like I gotta put that in.
Sure.
I gotta put in The End. And then it's like between Oh Darling and Carry That Weight for me for the last one. And I think I will go with Oh Darling because that one just it's so good.
It's Christmas
Great
time
choices.
always in the clubhouse. No, that's
Hallmark
crazy.
movie.
Yeah, no, this was a diverse top three, honestly, which just shows how incredibly just diverse this album is. And I am so very glad that this was your choice, Nick. I appreciate it because I can now say I've done Abbey Road, taking the whole stroll.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk about it. I could talk about it obviously way too much if I was given the platform, so appreciate it.
Well, yeah, no, great album. Like I said, I had listened to it once, like probably like 2 to 3 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when, but then yeah, when I knew we were reviewing this, I listened to it again and just like was brought right back into just how good that B side is. I mean, the A side is good too, but just wow.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat that it was like Rolling Stone does a lot of like top 100, top 50, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's cool that I think in their most recent list of songwriters, Lennon and McCartney are Lennon's 2 and McCartney's 3.
Okay.
And then this album on like on their top 100 album list is like I think it was 5 on the most recent release. And the top 10 are like 2 other Beatles albums, which is cool. So critically acclaimed by others than us. And it's cool to continue to get all the reception it does to this day.
Well, shit.
And it causes a whole lot of traffic jams on one street in London every single day.
I can imagine. Everyone just wants to get that picture.
I got one when I visited and it was super crappy because there's like 6 cars coming and it had to be like real quick. Go
That's
super early in
hilarious.
the morning if you wanted to get that photo done.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, well, that will close out our Dave Matthews album review series. Oh, I'm sorry. Always got to throw in Dave once in an episode. We'll be closing out the homie series. Nick, thank you again, man. We love doing these things. It was great to be able to bring in some of our friends to choose some albums, and it was great to just learn a lot from all of our homies. So appreciate you closing it out. This is the end.
Hell yeah. Happy to join the Stampede and continue the good work. Each episode gets better and better, and I am genuinely interested in listening to it. Not just because you're my friends. So keep up the good work, and let's get that top 10 music controversy episode going, or not controversy. Conspiracy episode going.
Okay.
And I'm here for ideas always, with royalties expected.
I love it. A businessman always. Well, yeah, well, shit, no, we're always looking for just new ideas, and that would be a great one to cover. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Hell yeah.
Well, besides that, my name is Spruce,
I'm Club.
and this has been another episode of Vinyl Stallion.